Page 194, Monster. Detective told me. King told you about the plans, or what he wanted you to know of them. The police told you about the witness. Are you sure you were there? I told you I was there. As a matter of fact, your deal depends on you admitting you were there, doesn't it, Mr. Evans? Yeah. Did you talk to Osvaldo after the stick-up? No. Did you talk to Mr. Harmon? No. How about the money? Weren't you supposed to split the money up? When we found out that guy was dead, we decided to lay low. Who is the we who decided to lay low? Me and King. Thank you, nothing further. Cut to Bertelli, adjusting her glasses. Prior to the robbery, just before the robbery, what were you and Mr. King doing? Just before we went in? Yes, just before you went in. What were you doing? Waiting for him to come out. Who are you referring to when you say him? Him. That guy sitting over there. Let the record show that Mr. Evans is referring to Stephen Harmon. Nothing further. Stands quickly. But you had not spoken to Mr. Harmon prior to the stick-up? Nah. And you didn't speak to him after the stick-up or split any money with him? I told you we decided to lay low. We would have given him his cut later when things cooled down. Did that time ever come? I don't know what King did. But as far as you know, there was no money given to Mr. Harmon. I don't know what King done. Nothing further. Cut to a middle shot of jurors from Steve's point of view. One juror, a middle-aged man, looks directly towards the camera for a long time. The camera then moves away as if Steve has turned away from the accusing stare. The people rest. Fade out. Fade in, concentric, colorful circles, and hurdy-gurdy music. A hustling, rustling cartoon city comes alive on the screen. Then a small cartoon man dressed in an old-fashioned nightgown looks out the window. Cartoon man. The people rest! On screen, all cartoon characters stop. Cars screech to a stop, and then everybody sleeps. The people are resting. Cut to interior courtroom. I'll take motions this afternoon after lunch. The defense can start its case the first thing in the morning. It's a nice day out, and we'll adjourn and give the jury the rest of the day off unless somebody has an objection. We see the jury leave, then the various parties leave in turn. When we see Miss Harmon come over and talk to O'Brien, Steve's mother is disturbed as a court officer comes over and stands near Steve. Fade out. Tuesday, July 14th. Miss O'Brien came to see me this afternoon. She looked tired. She said the Boas testimony hurt us a lot, and that she had to find a way to separate me from King. But King's lawyer wanted to make sure the jury connected us because I looked like a pretty decent guy. She talked to me for almost an hour. Several times she patted me on the hand. I asked her if that meant that she thought we were going to lose the case. She said no, but I don't believe her. I'm so scared. My heart is beating like crazy, and I am having trouble breathing. The trouble I'm in keeps getting bigger and bigger. I'm overwhelmed by it. It's crushing me. It's a nice day on the outside. On the street below, people walk in what looks like a crisscross pattern across the narrow streets. There are yellow cabs edging along on the corner. There is a cart that sells food, frankfurters or sausages, I guess, and sodas. People stand around buying what they want, then move away. It looks like something I would like to do, move away from where I am. Tomorrow we start our case, and I don't see we are going to do. I hear myself thinking, like all the other prisoners here, trying to convince myself that everything will be all right, that the jury can't find me guilty because of this reason or that reason. We lie to ourselves here. Maybe we are lying because we lie to ourselves. Lying on my cot, I think of everything that has happened over the last year. There was nothing extraordinary in my life. No bolt of lightning came out of the sky. I didn't say a magic word and turn into somebody different, but here I am, maybe on the verge of losing my life or the life I used to have. I can understand why they take your shoelaces and belt from you when you're in jail. Miss O'Brien made me write down all the people in my life who I loved and who loved me. Then I had to write down the people who I admire. I wrote down Mr. Sandwick's name twice. Mr. Briggs will present King's defense first. Miss O'Brien will go second, but she says she has to be careful because if she says anything that makes King look bad and Mr. Briggs attacks her, it will look bad for me. We can use some friends, she said. When she left and I had to go back to the cell area, I was more depressed than I had been since I've been here. I wish Jerry were here, not in jail, but somehow with me. What would I say to him? Think about all the tomorrows of your life. Yes, that's what I would say. Think about all the tomorrows of your life. When the lights went out, I think I heard someone crying in the darkness. Fade-in interior courtroom. Dorothy Moore is on the stand. She is brown-skinned, fairly pleasant-looking woman. She looks sincerely at S. Briggs. And what time do you remember Mr. King coming to your home that afternoon? 3:30. And you're sure of the time? I'm quite sure, sir. Nothing more. Miss Moore, how often does Mr. King come to your house? About twice a month. He's my cousin. Do you remember the purpose of the visit? He was just dropping by. He saw a lamp that he thought I might like, and he brought it by. We talked about Christmas coming up. He bought the lamp for you? Yes, he did. Do you remember if he was working at the time? Did he have a job? I don't think so. And so he took his money to buy you a lamp. You remember how much that lamp cost? No, I don't. But that was nice of him, wasn't it? I think it was. And you like him a lot, don't you? I wouldn't lie for him, if that's what you're saying. Before this visit, when did you last see Mr. King? I guess a few weeks before that. I don't know the exact date. What kind of work was he looking for? Just a job, I don't know. Does he have a driver's license? I don't know. You really don't know a lot about your cousin, do you? I know I saw him that day. And what do you do for a living? I do a day's work, but I wasn't working that week because I had hurt my ankle. I went to the doctor that Monday, and you can check that out. You don't have to verify what you were doing, Miss Moore. Did anybody see Mr. King at your home on that day? I don't think so. Do you still have that lamp? The lamp Mr. King so kindly bought for you? It broke. Should I take that to mean you no longer have the lamp? They don't make things to last anymore. I think it was made in Korea or something, place like that. Again, should I take that to mean that you no longer have the lamp? I don't have it now, but I did have it. Yes, of course. Thank you. Nothing further. Cut to George nipping on stand. He is about 50 and wears wire-rimmed glasses. He speaks precisely and generally makes a good impression. Mr. Nipping, do you know, as a matter of fact, if Mr. King is right-handed or left-handed? He's left-handed. I know that because when he was a kid, I went out and bought him a glove, a baseball glove, and I had to take it back because he was left-handed. Have you ever known him to do anything of significance with his right hand? No. I've never seen him use his right hand for anything. We see Steve writing on a pad. Cut to the pad. O'Brien is writing a note under Steve's question, which reads, "What's this about?" She writes, "The wound was on the left side of the body, which might mean that the shooter was right-handed. It's a weak argument." And for the record, how long have you known Mr. King? I'd say about 17 to 18 years. Thank you. Cut to nipping on stand facing Pacelli. Have you ever seen Mr. King shoot a man? No, I haven't. So when he shoots a gun, you don't know what hand he uses. Is that right? Objection! Pacelli ignoring objection. If Mr. King was struggling with someone and the gun happened to be on the right side, do you know what he would do? No, I don't. Nothing further. Cut to film class. Middle shot of Mr. Swinsky. There are a lot of things you could do with film, but you don't have to unlimited access to your audience. In other words, keep it simple. You tell the story. You don't look for the camera technician to tell the story for you. When you see a filmmaker getting too fancy, you can bet he's worried either about his story or about his ability to tell it. Cut to interior room where lawyers meet with their clients, split screen. One side is O'Brien pacing nervously, on the other side is Steve sitting. You're going to have to take the stand. Look at the jury and let the jury look at you and say that you're innocent. I know the judge will tell the jury not to infer anything if you don't take the stand, but I believe that the jury wants to hear from you. I think they want to hear your side of the story. Can you handle it? We see Steve nodding in the affirmative. The prosecutor's strongest point against you is the connection between you and King. She has Bobo admitting to being in on the robbery and his link to King. You've told me you know King. I don't know why you've chosen this man as an acquaintance, but it's going to hurt you big time if you don't manage to somehow distance between you and him in the eyes of the jury. You're going to have to break the link. He's sitting there looking surly. Maybe he thinks he's tough. I don't know. I do know you're better put some distance between yourself and whatever being a tough guy represents. You need to present yourself as someone the jurors can believe in. Briggs isn't going to put King on the stand. That helps you. But when he sees us separating you from him, he's going to realize that his client is in trouble. How do you know he won't testify? King made a statement to the police when he was arrested. He said he didn't know Bobo. But the prosecution can prove that's a lie. So if he takes the stand, they can use his own statements against him, and he's cooked. If you don't testify, you'll just make the tie between you and King stronger in the mind of the jury. I think you have to testify, and the way you spend the rest of your youth might well depend on how much the jury believes you. That woman said that King was with her. Right, but Priscilla didn't even bother with a lengthy cross-examination. Did you notice that? She dismissed Miss Moore with her tone of voice. A cousin who likes him testifies that he was with her. Big deal. Against all the evidence against him, it doesn't count for very much. His lawyer is going to rely on his closing arguments to win the case, and I don't think that's going to be effective unless he's very, very lucky. Cases are won at closing arguments only on television, not in a real courtroom. Single middle shot, we see Steve nodding, but he is looking down. We see O'Brien nodding at him, studying him closely. She sits down and takes a deep breath, puts a paper on the table. Okay, Steve, now stay with me. We're going to play a little game. I'm going to take this cup and place it on the table. Then I'm going to ask you some questions. When I like the answers you give, I'll leave the cup facing up. When I don't like the answers, I'll turn it upside down. You figure out what's wrong with the answers you gave me, all right? Why? O'Brien doesn't answer when we see Steve nod his assent. Did you know James King? No? Turns the cup down. Yeah, casually. Cut to O'Brien, turns the cup up. When was the last time you spoke to him before the robbery? Last summer? Cut to O'Brien, turns the cup down. I don't know for sure. I mean, he's not like a guy I talk with a lot. Cut to O'Brien, turns the cup up. Then the camera moves farther and farther away from the pair. We see another prisoner and lawyer enter the room. We don't hear O'Brien's questions or Steve's answers, but we see O'Brien turning the cup. Fade to black. Faded interior cell at nighttime. We barely see the outline of the inmates, two of whom are sleeping on the floor. The prosecutor said I was lying. I wanted to ask her what she meant, what she expected me to do when telling the truth was going to get me 10 years. When they got you in the system, it ain't time to get all holy. You in the system, you need to get out the system. What's the truth? Anybody here knows what the truth is. I don't know what the truth is. Only truth I know is I don't want to be in here with your ugly dudes. Truth is truth. It's what you know to be right. Nah, truth is something you gave up when you were out there on the street. Now you're talking survival. You talking about another chance to breathe some air 5 other guys ain't breathing. You get up on the witness stand and the prosecutor talks about looking for truth when they really mean they looking for a way to stick you under the jail. I spent half my life in this joint, man. Where's my life? Where's my damn life? We hear the toilet flush as the scene ends. Cut to interior jail. Steve is dressing for court. We see him checking out his hand, which is slightly swollen. Cut to Steve sitting in back of van. He holds his hand out in front of his face. They are shaking. Cut to Steve on stand. Mr. Harmon, did you act as a lookout for the drugstore robbery or check out the store so that a robbery could be safely committed? No, I did not. Mr. Harmon, did you discuss with anyone that you would act as a lookout or that you would check out the store? No, I did not. Mr. Harmon, were you in the drugstore owned by Mr. Nesbitt, the victim, on the 22nd of December of last year? No, I was not. Are you sure in your mind that you know what a lookout would do? Yes, I am. One last question. Were you in any way involved with the crime that we are discussing here? To make it clear, were you in any way involved with the holdup and murder that occurred on the 22nd of December? No, I was not. Nothing further. Catcher Percelli rifling through the papers. She stops occasionally, looks towards Steve and nods. Percelli leans back in her chair and visually confronts Steve for a long beat. Then she gets up and goes to the podium. Mr. Harmon, do you know James King? I know him from the neighborhood. You talk to him much? Once in a while. Once in a while. When was the last time you spoke to him before the robbery? I don't know exactly, but it was during the school year. Didn't you speak to him in December? I don't think so, but I might have. Which is it? You don't think so or you don't remember? Both. I mean, I might have spoke to him, but we don't talk about anything important enough to remember. What do you talk about? Usually I see him in the playground. Maybe he'd say something like, those guys can't play ball, stuff like that. Those guys can't play ball? Did you ever see him play ball? I don't remember seeing him play ball. You having trouble remembering what you've seen? No, but I've seen a lot of ball games. I watch a lot of ball games. Are you nervous? Do you want to take a few minutes? No. You talk to Bobo sometimes? Objection! We were referring to the witness as Mr. Evans, sustained. Have you spoken with Mr. Evans? I might have said hi to him. I've never had a conversation with him. You ever talked to Mr. Cruz? Oswaldo Cruz. Yes, he's about my age. I've talked with Oswaldo. What do you talk to Mr. Cruz about? Same thing mostly. About playing ball or the weather or what's going on in the neighborhood. Did you hear Mr. Evans' testimony? Let me put it this way. You heard Mr. Evans' testimony that you came out of the drugstore just before the robbery. Is that right? I heard his testimony. And you're saying it was just a coincidence that you were coming out of the store at that time? Cut to flashback of O'Brien turning over the cup. Cut to Steve on witness stand. I don't know exactly what the robbery happened, but I know I wasn't in the drugstore that day. So Mr. Evans was lying. I don't know what he was doing, but I know I wasn't in the drugstore. You heard Mr. Cruz say that you were supposed to go in and check the store out for cops. Is that right? Objection! I believe the testimony was that Mr. Cruz was told that was the case. Do you want the testimony read back? I'll withdraw the question as framed. Mr. Harmon, do you remember Oswaldo saying that he understood you to be the lookout? I heard him say that. And according to you, Mr. Cruz was lying too. No, somebody could have told him that, but I know I wasn't there. Then he must have lied. Is that right? Objection. The prosecution is soliciting an argument. Withdrawn, Mr. Harmon. You say you weren't at the drugstore any time during the day of the robbery. Perhaps you would tell us where you were. I don't know exactly where I was when the robbery took place. Most of the day I was going around taking mental notes about places I wanted to film for our school film project. Well, if you don't know exactly where you were, can you tell me anyone who might know where you were? I don't even remember where I was. When the detectives asked me where I was, I couldn't even remember the day they were talking about. They didn't ask me about it until weeks later. Then how do you remember what did you say? Taking mental notes for a school film project. I know that because I was planning to do the film on my neighborhood over the holidays. Getting back to Mr. King, would you consider yourself a friend of his or an acquaintance? An acquaintance. Mr. Cruz, friend or an acquaintance? Acquaintance. Mr. Bobo Evans, friend or acquaintance? Acquaintance. So you're acquainted with everyone involved in this robbery, is that well? Objection! She knows better than that. She knows better than that. Sustained. The jury will disregard the last question. There is no one who has involved in this affair until the jury makes that decision. And yes, Mr. Pelly, you do know better. Nothing further. We see Steve stand shakily and head back to the defense table. He looks out onto the onlookers and sees his parents. His mother forces a smile, and his father makes a fist and nods empathetically. We see Steve sit down, start to pick up a glass of water, and have to put it down because his hand is shaking so badly. O'Brien crosses to the desk and writes on the pad in front of Steve. We see what she has written. It says, "Take deep breaths." The defense calls George Sawinski. Close-up of George Sawinski. Mr. Sawinski, do you know the defendant sitting at the table? I've known Steve for 3 years. He's been in my film club. Can you give us your opinion of Mr. Harmon's work? I think he's an outstanding young man. He is talented, bright, and compassionate. He's very much involved with depicting his neighborhood and environment in a positive manner. Do you consider him an honest young man? Absolutely. When he says he was taking mental notes for a film, would that be a film for your club? Yes. Nothing further. Close up of Mr. Swansea, he starts to leave the stand, and is then held up by the judge. Cut to Bercelli. You said you're a teacher in Mr. Harmon's school. Do you live in his neighborhood? No, I don't. So although you want to vouch for his character, isn't it fair to say that you don't know what he does when he goes to his neighborhood and you go home to yours? No, it's not. His film footage shows me what he's seeing and to a large extent what he's thinking, and what he sees, the humanity of it, speaks of a very deep character. What was he doing on the afternoon of December 22nd? Did he show you a film of that day? No, he did not. Do you feel that the ability to make a film means that someone is honest? It is my belief that to make an honest film, one has to be an honest person. I would say that, and I do believe in Steve's honesty. As a matter of fact, you like him quite a bit, don't you? Yes, I do. Nothing further.